the most ineffable of the concepts because, like, it's so personal. Like, when I talk about my pleasures with media or my pleasures with using digital technology, I can't really make many assumptions about what you find pleasurable. So I'm going to share pleasure, the pleasure that I experience with media and technology, in 3 gifts. Or perhaps you call them GIFs. I'm not sure. This first one, it's kind of important to me. Because one of the deepest pleasures I have in life is as a reader. I am first and foremost a reader. And I think this GIF is so beautiful because of the way it feels like it's capturing something about the reading experience. Notice how when she opens the book, the light shines down on her, right? Notice how her hair puddles in like a waterfall. Notice how she's even posed on the chair in that supremely relaxed pose of being immersed in the story or narrative that's captivated her and taken her out of her chair into some other place, some imaginary, beautiful, interesting, complicated, messy, or even nightmarish world. She has transported herself through reading. I feel like the experience of pleasure in reading is a real treasure. And we need to hold on to that treasure and preserve and capture that treasure. And part of why we're so keen on reading is because when you learn how to read, it can be the deepest and most powerful pleasure you experience. So for me, my first experience with pleasure starts here. My second experience with pleasure is here. There's Kermit slaving away at his typewriter, but he's not slaving away at all, man. He's in the zone, right? He's in the writing zone. And he's being inspired by the dead white guy in the back. You see him? The dead white guy in the back has inspired him, but I experience this kind of pleasure when I write. Now, of course, I don't always bang it out like that, but sometimes I do. Because there's something about feeling like your voice, it's like singing, right? It's something like feeling your voice getting out there that just feels great, right? And even more mysterious is when the words get interpreted and read and understood by readers. Wow, writing is one of the deepest pleasures I experience with media and technology. And then, the pleasure I experience making selfies. Now, this is a kind of an old school selfie. Some youngins in the room, those under 35 that we got introduced to, they might not even recognize this old technology, right? You know, it was pretty instant gratification. The picture would come right out, right? Wow, it was thrilling. Yeah, you shake it, and you wait, and then in 5 minutes you had a picture. But this GIF also speaks to me about some nuances of pleasure. It sure is fun making selfies. But I remember seeing this movie, Thelma and Louise, and maybe you saw it too. And this was probably one of the most disturbing and problematic and beautiful and troubling films I've ever seen. And in 1997 or whenever it came out, it meant something different to me than it does rewatching it 20 years later. But there's something complicated about the pleasure I experience in thinking about how women try to deal with the impossible struggles of the gender identities that are sometimes imposed on us, and the way we are treated, and the way we are judged and evaluated, and the way the gender identities can be oppressive. And there's something kind of powerful about the pleasure of being able to identify with those experiences as through fiction, right? as in literature, as in film. So the pleasures I experience with media are complicated, and I treasure that complexity, because I feel like it helps me figure out about the impossible challenges of being alive, right? As a human being with all my weaknesses and failures and all my stuff. But now it's gotten even more complicated because I've got this social media thing going on, right? And I am aware that I'm documenting my life as I live it. And I'm documenting my life as I live it because I'm trying to communicate something about my values. I'm trying to understand my values, and I'm trying to share them, and I'm trying to connect with people through what I value. And that's partly why I love social media and experience a lot of pleasure about it, but also why I experience this great stress, because the comments that other people make about my posts say something about me. Okay, so that brings this issue of relationships into my media pleasures, and my relationships get connected to my media pleasures in really complicated ways. Like, on the one hand, I really love talking about myself, right? So, hey, this is a great outlet, right? I can just talk about myself online, and it's really wonderful, but also I feel a little pressure, right? Because when people like my stuff, I feel like I have to like them back, right? And I feel like, oh my God, I'm spending my whole life liking stuff. And I'm wondering about whether that's how authentic is that liking? And what does it mean, that form of reciprocation, that pressure I feel? I'm reflecting on that. And then even weirder, now that I'm an old lady, right, are all of these things that are tapping into my, being old. Like, even look at my advertising, right? The new rules of middle age, right? And how to eat without cooking. Strange stuff. But here they are talking about dippity-doo and aluminum TV dinners, and it's weird that now nostalgia is, for my generation of the baby boomers, we are reveling in feeling connected to a past that's right now just a fiction. Right now, your past, it's a story. And so I've been thinking a lot about our need for social connectedness and the pleasures we feel from nostalgia, looking at old photos and remembering old times, and how powerful that is in our pleasure and our identity. Now, to the students we teach, they experience a lot of pleasure, but it's kind of different than, at least different than the kind of experience I feel. Whereas I just shared with you a lot about the public nature of my pleasure with social media, our students using Snapchat are experiencing a pleasure that feels really private. Here he is on his skateboard, on a lawn chair. This is a still from a video, and he's flying down the street in his vehicle, right? His homemade vehicle. And the instantaneity and the anonymity makes Jake feel like he's sharing a private pleasure. And I think about reflecting and how important it is to reflect on the new kinds of pleasures our students experience with digital media. So I thought it would be useful to introduce you to a concept that goes all the way back to the beginning of the 20th century. It was brought to us by the Russian formalist film theorists. They, when film was a brand new medium, they said, wow, what we need to do is help people defamiliarize themselves with film. So the process is something that is at the heart of interrogating pleasure. So defamiliarization is the artistic technique of presenting to audiences common things in an unfamiliar or strange way in order to enhance perception of the familiar. This is a powerful artistic practice, and I would submit to you that it's a powerful educational practice. So here's a defamiliarization assignment. Create a short video that takes something ordinary and makes it seem strange. Try to activate questions in the minds of your viewers using this technique. So let's see how one student tackled the job. She decided to try to defamiliarize online reading. So now it's your turn, elbow to elbow with the person seated next to you. Talk it over. Why is it useful to make the familiar strange when it comes to the pleasures of using digital media and technology? Talk it over with a partner, elbow to elbow.